My name is Jo Mortensen, and I've been happily married to the love of my life for 50 years this year. We're lucky we made it through this 50 years. And we have three wonderful children who are all here. They've come from South Carolina and Canada to be here tonight. And 7 wonderful grandchildren, which is the incentive to keep going, right? Our auto accident. I fell out the wrong place here. First, I would like to say that I feel very honored to have been asked to speak in this event, as over the term of my recovery at Origami, I have seen others there who have had or are having more severe injuries to overcome than myself. I hope my story may offer you some encouragement and understanding. I hope I do not offend anyone with my references to God and faith, but I know I am still here because of Him. Our auto accident occurred on 11/1/2013. We were hit head-on by another vehicle while we were going 55 miles per hour down the highway. Thankfully, my husband had had a flat tire that morning on his Malibu, and he had chosen to drive our 3/4-ton pickup, which we never drove. Its only use was for pulling our boat. That alone saved both of our lives. But it did not completely save us. My husband was the lucky one who was able to walk away from the accident. He held onto the steering wheel so hard that he bent both sides of the steering wheel down. The ladies in the other vehicle were able to walk away. However, I did not. Hitting the windshield with my head, then hitting the dash with my head, and coming down on the console, which is where I became fully conscious again. My seat was completely broken off, the dash was severely damaged, and the shift console I was lying on was damaged. Now I understand that it is rare for most accident victims to remember anything that occurred at the time of the accident, but I have retained some vivid memories that I often wished I didn't. I remember the collision, the sound of the metal grinding as the two vehicles collided. At some point I came to in motion, a floating sensation, to see something dark fly by my face. We think that was the glove box cover. Then I was out again. The next thing I knew, I was lying on the console and thinking, I came through this okay. I'm fine. But I wasn't. Shock prevented me from feeling anything until the paramedics tried to remove me from the car and onto a bodyboard. I feel very blessed that the ambulance arrived as quickly as they did, and I survived to reach Sparrow Hospital because I could not breathe or talk. I remember praying all the way to Sparrow Hospital that God would provide my oxygen and keep me alive. And He did. This panic must be what it feels like to be drowning. There is panic still when I lay flat on my back that I can't breathe. The memories have often come back to haunt me in nightmares or even while conscious, especially while in a car. Coming to, my second thought after awareness and thinking that I was okay was, is my husband okay? As I reached to touch him. He was unconscious from hitting his head on the side window, but moved as soon as I touched him. I do have to tell a rather humorous story about the ambulance ride. Evidently, at some point when they put me in the ambulance, and due to the excruciating pain, I grabbed the inner thigh of the paramedic in a death grip. He tried to be very patient with me while asking me repeatedly, "Ma'am, could you please let go of my leg?" However, I could not respond, so he finally pulled my hand off his thigh and placed it on the edge of my gurney. We often laughed later about what his family must have thought when they saw the bruises on his inner thigh, although I still feel badly, as it must have been quite painful. Later, I learned the results were traumatic brain injuries to my skull, a displaced skull bone, and brain damage, damage to my eye and cheek socket, damage to my mouth, all ribs broken, damaged diaphragm, internal bleeding from my spleen, which they originally thought was my aorta, left hip completely shattered, right hip broken, shoulder damage, and other miscellaneous bruises and nerve damage. I had a large hematoma on my forehead, a large cone on the top of my head. My mouth was misshapen, and teeth had been shifted. There were bruises and blood draining around my eye socket and ear and down my neck. So I told my grandchildren that I looked like Shrek, so they wouldn't be afraid of me. I had 2 surgeries during that first 24 hours, spleen and left hip. As soon as we reached the hospital, I was unconscious again and came to during the first surgical procedure to hear them counting. That's 3, that's 4, that's 5. And then I was out again, but I remember thinking, what are they counting? I found out later that they were inserting small metal balls into the spleen to try to plug the hole and stop the bleeding. So now I carry 5 metal objects around in my spleen. The second surgery was to replace the left hip and repair the pelvic bone. The trauma surgeon stated it was the worst hip damage he had ever seen. Then I was transferred to Okemos Rehab Center, where I thank Luna, my occupational therapist, for helping me to get out of bed and function again. She was with me every day. Then I became part of origami, and Dr. Wyatt became my trauma doctor. What a blessing. I later learned that Dr. Wyatt was friends with a family who were close friends of our family and had been told about my accident, and she was looking for me at Okemos Rehab, only to have already been referred to me, and she didn't know it yet. I also had testing done at PAR Rehab for my mental and emotional status, and I want to give credit to Angela Pena for being my wonderful counselor and support person. She was an angel when I needed one, and still is, and she's here tonight, and I'm so glad she came. I also had 2 surgeries on the right hip 9 months after the accident, one within 3 weeks of the other due to serious complications, an infection that was rare and obtained while in the hospital. But Dr. Taunt did a great job as my surgeon both times. I also have been seeing Dr. Ezzo for brain training, a fascinating and sometimes frustrating experience. With electrodes on my head, I was able to actually see the brain activity on a computer monitor, including the left and right brain interaction and the movement of my different brain waves. And as we try to train my brain to function properly again, I can see the changes my thoughts have on these brain activities right on the monitor. He recently just passed away from cancer. I don't know how many of you may have had him involved in your life, but he was a wonderful, talented man and will be missed. There are so many unexpected symptoms of TBI: unexpected swearing, emotions out of control, mental fatigue, vision problems, anger and depression. Looking back, I wish there had been some type of TBI handbook so you understood why you acted or reacted the way you did or do. Then much of this would have made more sense. I have been visiting origami for over 3 years now for various therapies. Everyone there has been so helpful. I do want to especially thank Dr. Wyatt, Ron in physical therapy, Jessica, my occupational therapist who is no longer at origami and who made me laugh at a time when I needed that, Mackenzie in vision therapy, and of course Cara for being patient enough to take me out in a car as I graduated from the driving simulator to a passenger in a real car. Not easy, as I can panic easily in a vehicle. Just ask my husband what a pain this is. I also need to thank Cheryl Zilmer, my case manager. She is one of those often unsung heroes. She has been with me since the beginning, along with Dr. Wyatt. She is responsible for medical record collecting and sharing, coordinating schedules, transportation issues, and keeping me on track. And most importantly, I want to thank my husband, who has had to take on many of my responsibilities along with his own, plus help me as well. And my adult children who have families of their own. My daughter who worked hard to hold down the fort at work in my absence. My eldest son who is a police officer in South Carolina and who drove all night, a 12-hour trip, or less in this case, just to sleep on the hospital floor by my bed all night with nothing, just to make sure I was going to survive. He was even stopped by a state police officer for speeding, but let go once he knew the story. And my youngest son, who always encouraged me with words of love and support. Learning how to just ride in a car without panic has been quite an experience, and I am still in active driving therapy with Bob Reed, but I'm still experiencing PTSD in any vehicle. I do not trust the other drivers out there, so I do not drive yet. I can panic when a vehicle comes towards us, turns in our direction, or gets too close, or just seeing an accident or ambulance. Then I often burst into tears. My heart races and I have to try to calm down again. I usually do not watch the road, playing games on my tablet, etc., to avoid seeing traffic. Prior to the accident, I owned 2 insurance agencies and had for 25 years, and was a self-motivated, strong-willed person who worked long hours at the office every day and then came home to continue working in my home office. I was detail and goal-oriented. It was a lot of responsibility, but I had always loved learning new things and using my talent for details. I enjoyed caring for and helping people. Due to the accident, I lost so much of those abilities. I could not concentrate, I could not remember, I could not complete tasks that I did before. In essence, I could not function as I did before and continue to run the business. I felt so frustrated, so incompetent, and so stupid. So I sold the agencies effective October 1, 2015. This was an answer to unspoken prayer as well. God knew what we needed, and I had 2 offers come in to buy the business at the same time. Obvious, wasn't it? Dr. Ezzo was repeatedly telling me I needed to remove what stress I could from my brain because it was hindering my healing. After several months and I was out of the business, I realized that this was one stress that I was better off without, as far as recovery goes. However, the feelings of loss, regret, and failure take much longer, and the physical issues make some of the emotional and mental issues harder to deal with. If you knew me before, you would think this goal change would be easy for me, but it's not. I had to let go of my previous life goals, striving and achieving to make the business better, being able to physically play with my grandchildren as I did before, being able to manage our personal finances, and try to focus on new ones, focus on a new and different life. Dr. Ezzo said something to me that really helped, as I have thought about it often. Think of it as graduation. When you graduate from high school, your old life has ended, and a new phase of your life is beginning. You are entering a new life phase. For me, the old workaholic life had ended, and the new phase had begun, but one I hadn't chosen, and one that is often still hard to accept. Probably the most difficult part of this whole process has been the self-worth issues, and I am sure you all understand what I mean. I often called myself stupid or dumb, and I remember Jessica and Linda scolding me for that. But it isn't easy to think much of yourself when you can't function physically or mentally like you did before. How do you recover that worth? When for me, my brain was all that I had. I never was into sports. I did not have a gorgeous body or a beautiful face. My brain was my only asset. And now it isn't the same, and probably never will be. How do you recover from that loss? I am sure it is like an athlete losing a needed limb. I'm here to tell you that only time has the answer. It is not an instant fix nor an easy one. but every day sees a little progress here or there. You will always feel the loss, but I am convinced the goal is always before you, even though it has changed. And it is our striving towards that goal that counts. God bless you all.